had been looking for a place for GDS to be based out of, and I wanted it to be somewhere in northern Manhattan or the Bronx, because at that point, an area that was most needed. Yvonne Russell from Women's Housing and Economic Development Corporation was the actual director of Camp Excel. He was an athlete, and what happened was he was not in the field of helping youth, but from his experience at Camp Excel, he began to get a passion to work with teenagers, and Women's Housing and Economic Development Corporation, that ended up being the place that we ended up there. We stayed in the South Bronx and worked at WEDCO in their after-school program from 1997 till 2002. And one day we were at an advisory council meeting, and one of the advisory council members said, "Dr. Gary, you need your own space." This advisory council member had a relationship with New York City Economic Development Corporation, and he said to me, "You know, there's this huge armory up in Washington Heights, and that's an incredibly needed area. I know the people that run this armory, and they must have like a space in there that you could build out and we could do. Let me see." So it ended up being that one of our advisory council members introduced us to the commissioner of the Department of Homeless Services, and we ended up seeing that they had a space that we could build out. And I knew that Washington Heights and Inwood, that tip of Manhattan, was an area in tremendous need, and we were able to use in-kind donations to help build the space out from rubble. And at first there was a lot of pushback about that, and that was an area that was the beginning of our next chapter, and that's where we started to run our Camp Excel out of, and then the year-long program.
Welcome everybody to GDS.
Once we got into the building, we had our space. It was 1,200 square feet. We had 4 offices and 1 big group room.
Big room, we call it the Reach Potential room.
Each social worker had their own office where the youth they would work with would come into their office and talk to them on a one-to-one before the group started. Our space was small, but GDS did community events where we did mental health awareness, mental health support groups for the whole community. It was like 30 to 50 youth, but they would each have a group of 20 youth, and those youth would come into their office and talk to them on a one-to-one before the group started. Each group would come one day, and then the other 2 days they could come whenever they wanted for homework help or other support, or just to use the space to hang out with, as well as to attend our community events. So we had individual counseling that happened before the group and after the group, and then we had group therapy, but we didn't call it that. We had group rap sessions, and we had groups, and part of the deal of coming to Camp Excel was that they had to attend their group, because we wanted to keep that consistency of what they learned. As our program grew and the people that ran the armory saw that the youth were being well behaved, we tried to partner with them. They run different programs in there. They have college readiness program, they have a little theater, they have the track program. I soon learned that that was the building where the movie The Saint of Fort Washington was done, and I started to research the history of the New York City Fort Washington Armory, which is really best known as an indoor track facility. But when the homeless epidemic hit in 1993, the armory was used to house thousands of homeless men. For GDS, it was a beautiful home. I say a home in the Heights for the youth, because the youth needed a safe space to go, and that's where we started our space in the armory, as well as the whole community was invited. It was a community space. GDS was first partnered with WEDCO, Women's Housing Economic Development Corporation, WEDCO. They gave us 10 to 20 of their most challenged youth that other programs couldn't work with. The program was very structured. We had a ratio of 1-to-1 at camp, where we had 50 teenagers and 50 volunteers, and we had me as a psychologist. We had another amazing psychologist, Dr. Bonnie Sachs, who helped to found GDS, another social worker. These are the original founders. We all put our heads together and created GDS. We first had to build a trust with the parents and the youth. We did intensive informational sessions, had alumni come and talk to the other youth about how great the program was. There were youth that we were working with that could have been suicidal because these were youth that have been through a lot of trauma. We also made deals with them that if you're going to come to Camp Excel, we need you to stay in therapy and work with your psychologist or your social worker if you were in therapy. We knew we could do it with the right ratio, with the right support, the right structure, and the right staff. It's all about the team. I realized that having a community space in the community near where the youth and families live is so important, especially giving them that safe space. When we first moved in, there was a lot of pushback where the alleged owner of the building said that we don't want these kinds of kids in the building. He said those kids are going to ruin his building and those kids are not going to be able to be allowed even in the building. So it was a lot of pushback in the community from the beginning to the end, but as we proved to the community and to the people in the building, the kids were well behaved, the kids had the right structure, which I promised that they would, and over years it got better, but there still was pushback. It makes me realize, it makes all of us realize how important it is for you to have a safe space and have a home where the youth, after you do all of these skills and teach them, you have to build on that. They've been through so much trauma throughout their life that the consistency of what we created with Camp Excel and the Excel program and the year-long program is vital.
Excel!